All right, get ready to explore the world of Neo4j Graph data science.
It's going to be quite the deep dive.
It really is, and
Yeah.
specifically, we're going to be looking at this Neo4j Graph Python library
Oh, yes,
that you've been digging into, and you've got quite a bit of technical documentation here.
They do.
And it seems like you're really interested in building some, well, seriously cool AI applications
Yeah.
powered by Neo4j.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Neo4j, you see, being a graph database, it's really becoming central, a powerhouse for AI.
Yeah.
And this library that you're exploring, this is like the key, right? This is what's going to bridge that gap between all this raw, unstructured text data that you have
Right.
and the structured world of knowledge graphs.
Knowledge graphs, that's where it gets really interesting.
It does.
Because it's like taking this jumbled box of puzzle pieces, right?
Yeah.
And actually being able to assemble them into a clear picture.
Yeah.
So tell me, how does this Neo4j Graph Core Python actually make that happen?
So imagine you've got this mountain of text.
Right.
Research papers, news articles, you name it.
Yep.
First step is you got to break it down into manageable chunks, like separating that mountain into, let's say, individual rocks.
Right.
And that's where text splitters come in.
Text splitters
Yeah.
sounds pretty self-explanatory, but I have a feeling it's probably more complicated than that.
There's always more to it.
Okay.
You could just chop the text up into equal-sized pieces. Yeah, sure. But Neo4j GraphQL Python lets you get smarter about it.
Okay.
We can use libraries like LangChain, LAMI-index,
Right.
which might split based on the sentence structure, maybe even making those rocks a lot more consistent,
Interesting.
much more usable.
Okay, so we've got these chunks, these neatly separated chunks of text.
Yeah.
Now what?
Okay, so now we got to give each chunk a unique identity, right?
Right, okay.
A way for the computer to understand its essence.
Okay.
And that's where embeddings come in.
Oh, Betty.
It's like translating each of those chunks into a point in a vast multidimensional space, right? Where similar chunks are going to cluster together.
So like we're giving each chunk kind of a fingerprint based on its meaning.
Exactly, a fingerprint. And there are tons of different models to create these embeddings. There's OpenAI's models, sentence transformers, the list goes on and on.
Right.
Choosing the right one, it's almost like, it's like picking the perfect spice blend.
Okay.
It really depends on the nuances of your data and what you want to achieve.
We've split the text. We've created embeddings.
Yeah.
I feel like we're on the verge of a knowledge graph
Almost there.
breakthrough.
Almost there. The next step is where the real magic happens. Entity and relation extraction.
Okay.
This is where those really powerful LLMs, like GPT-4, which I know you're a fan of,
Of course.
come into play.
Yeah, walk me through it.
Okay, so the LLM is going to analyze each text chunk, and it's going to start identifying these key entities.
Okay.
Things like people, organizations, locations, anything that has like a distinct identity.
Right.
Then it figures out the relationship between these entities.
Okay.
So think of it as the LLM, like drawing lines between those fingerprint points in space,
Yeah.
connecting them based on the meaning that it uncovers.
So the LLM is doing the heavy lifting of understanding the context within each chunk.
Exactly.
And then finding those connections, those hidden connections.
Exactly, precisely.
Wow.
And this process, this identification of entities and their relationships, this is how we start to form those nodes and edges of our knowledge graph.
It's like taking those individual puzzle pieces and actually starting to see how they fit together.
Yes.
Okay, so we've gone from a jumble of text to this map of interconnected information.
We have.
But where does Neo4j come in?
That's where the Neo4j writer component of this library comes in.
Okay.
It takes all of this beautifully structured knowledge, the entities, the relationships, those unique embeddings, and it stores it directly into your Neo4j database.
So essentially it's like it's building our graph database for us based on all of this analysis that it's done.
It's building that knowledge graph for you, ready to be explored.
Incredible. So we built our knowledge graph, but how do we actually use it?
Right.
We're not going to be like manually sifting through nodes and edges, are we?
No, that's where the Neo4j GraphQL Python truly shines, okay? It provides this toolkit of retrieval methods, each one suited for different tasks.
Okay.
Let's start with vector search.
Okay, vector search. Does this have anything to do with those fingerprints that we created?
You bet. Remember those unique points in space that represented each chunk of text?
Yeah.
With vector search, you take a new piece of text, say a user's question, you embed it into that same space,
Okay.
and then you find the nodes in your knowledge graph that are closest to it in meaning.
So it's like finding not just word matches, it's finding the most conceptually similar information
Yes,
to the user's question.
exactly. This is where it gets really, really powerful because we're not limited by keywords anymore.
Right.
We're searching for meaning. We're searching for connections.
We're searching for those hidden relationships.
Uncovering answers that traditional searches, they might completely miss.
That opens up a world of possibilities.
It does.
So vector search uses those embeddings, but what about the graph structure itself?
Yeah.
Can Neo4j GraphRag leverage that during retrieval?
Absolutely. That's where the power of Neo4j as a graph database really comes in,
Okay.
because we can actually combine the magic of that vector search with the flexibility of Cipher queries.
Right, Cipher queries, that's Neo4j's native language.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we get the best of both worlds. We're using embeddings to kind of pinpoint those relevant starting points in the graph.
Yeah.
And then we're using Cipher to navigate those connections, explore the relationships, and just pull out even richer context.
So we can say, find information similar to this concept, but also having this specific relationship or characteristic within my knowledge graph.
You got it.
That's incredibly precise.
It is.
So we have vector search, we have this vector cipher. Are there any other ways to search the graph?
We can get even more creative. Remember how we talked about those hybrid approaches with text splitting?
Yeah.
Well, same concept applies here.
Okay.
Maybe we want that speed of vector search,
Right.
but we also want the laser focus of a full text search.
Right.
Neo4j GraphRag lets us combine these methods.
So we're not limited to just one tool in our toolkit.
You are not.
We can kind of tailor our search strategy to the need.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
And it gets even more interesting. Neo4j doesn't have to be the only place that those embeddings are stored.
Okay.
We can actually connect to external vector databases like Weaviate, Pinecone, or Pudrant.
Wow, so we can leverage Neo4j's graph superpowers and still benefit from these specialized databases.
Exactly. It's about choosing the right tool for the job, right?
All right.
We have massive data sets. Maybe Pinecone's scalability is the answer.
Okay.
We need those advanced filtering options. Weaviate might be the way to go. And Neo4j GraphRag acts as that bridge, right? Connecting these different systems.
This is mind-blowing. We've covered building the knowledge graph, searching it. There's one piece missing for me.
And what's that?
How do we interact with it all?
Yeah.
I can't be writing Cipher queries every time I have a question.
Of course not.
Right.
You're thinking like a user. You want a smooth, intuitive experience, right?
Exactly.
That's where the Text-to-Cipher RAG pipeline comes in.
Okay.
It's all about making this power accessible.
Okay, that's what I've been waiting for.
All right.
Tell me more.
So picture this, right? You type in your question in plain English,
Okay.
just like you'd ask a person.
Yeah.
This pipeline, using Text-to-Cipher retrieval, automatically translates that into a Cipher query that Neo4j understands.
So no need to be a Cipher whiz. I can just ask my question naturally.
Naturally.
And the pipeline takes care of the rest.
Exactly. It's like having a personal translator between you and your knowledge graph.
Wow, that's amazing.
We can even use examples to guide the LLM to ensure that it generates the right query for our specific needs.
So it's like we're teaching the system our language,
Yes.
showing it how we think, what we're looking for.
You got it.
It's like training, like a really smart search assistant
Yes.
that understands the nuances of our data.
And the more examples we provide, the better it's going to get at understanding those nuances.
Right.
And then translating that natural language into, really effective Cipher.
It's all about making this powerful technology truly user-friendly.
That's it. That's the goal.
I love it. It's like we're giving it a crash course in our data's unique language.
Exactly. And the more we refine its understanding, the more powerful this text-to-cipher pipeline becomes. But you were right to point out potential challenges earlier.
Yeah.
LLMs, they're still learning.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always room for improvement.
Okay. So that's what makes it so fascinating, though, right? It's not just plug and play.
Yeah.
We're working alongside these advanced systems, guiding them to unlock the true potential of our data. But how do we ensure we're guiding them effectively?
Right.
How do we avoid those wrong turns you mentioned, those moments where the LLM generates like a technically sound query,
Right.
but it misses the mark?
Yeah. That's where our role as guides becomes really important.
Okay.
It's like, teaching someone to read a map. You don't just hand them the map and expect them to navigate perfectly.
Right.
We point out landmarks, we discuss different routes, we help them interpret the symbols.
So how do we translate that to working with an LLM right, and this text-to-cipher pipeline. What are our landmarks and symbols in this context?
It all comes back to those real-world examples.
Hey.
Each question that we pose,
Right.
each desired result,
Yeah.
it becomes this teaching moment.
Okay.
We're essentially saying, okay, LLM, here's a specific question I have about my data. This is the cipher query that got me the answer I was looking for.
Yeah.
Learn from this. Internalize it.
So it's like we're creating a roadmap.
Yes, exactly.
For the LLM, showing it the paths to success based on, like, our real-world experience with the data.
Precisely.
We're not just relying on its general knowledge.
Right.
We're providing that specific contextual awareness that it needs to actually excel.
Exactly. And as we provide more and more of these examples, the LLM's understanding of our data, it deepens.
Okay.
It begins to anticipate our needs, right?
Yeah.
Starts to generate more accurate and relevant queries,
Right.
even for really complex questions.
It's like watching, like, a student grasp a complex concept,
Yeah.
that aha moment where everything clicks.
It is. It is.
But instead of a student, it's this incredibly powerful LLM becoming fluent in the language of our data.
Yes. Yes. It's a very rewarding process seeing those connections being made.
Yeah.
And it really highlights this collaborative nature of this technology, right?
Yeah. Right. It's not about replacing human intuition and expertise.
Exactly.
It's about amplifying it.
It is. It is.
It's like we're forming a partnership almost with these LLMs, each contributing our own unique strengths to unlock insights that neither of us could achieve alone.
It's a very powerful synergy, wouldn't you say?
I would say so. And speaking of powerful,
Yeah.
let's zoom out for a moment
Okay.
and talk about, like, the real world impact of all of this.
Yeah.
You know, we've covered these technical intricacies, the how of knowledge graphs and Neo4j GraphRag, but
Yeah.
what about the why?
Right.
Why should someone listening to this,
Yeah.
someone who's maybe intimidated by these seemingly complex concepts, why should they care about what we've discussed?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something we should never lose sight of,
Right.
especially as we kind of delve deeper into these, these fascinating technologies.
Yeah.
But the why is what gives it all meaning, right?
Yeah.
It's that driving force behind our exploration.
So what is the why? Why should someone, maybe they're just hearing about knowledge graphs for the first time. Why
Yeah.
should they care?
Because it has the potential to change how we understand our world, how we solve problems, how we make decisions.
Okay, so it's a different way of thinking about information and data.
It really is. Think about the challenges we face, both individually and as a society.
Right.
So many of these challenges stem from a lack of understanding, right?
Yeah.
From our inability to really see the connections within these, these complex systems.
Whether it's like finding cures for diseases, combating climate change, or even just understanding our own businesses better.
Yeah.
It often boils down to uncovering those connections, right?
It really does. And that's what knowledge graphs, empowered by tools like Neo4j GraphRag.
Yeah.
That's what they allow us to do.
Okay.
Give us that framework for organizing and making sense of information in a way that really mirrors how our own minds work.
Okay. In a way that's more natural. Yes.
Through relationships, through connections.
Yeah.
It's not just these, rows and columns in a table.
Right. It's about, like, taking all that data, all those scattered pieces of information, and, like, assembling it into an actual picture of reality.
Exactly. And with that picture in hand, with that deeper understanding of how things relate to one another, we're empowered to make, more informed decisions, to ask better questions.
Right.
And to uncover solutions that might have remained hidden otherwise.
It's like having a superpower.
It is.
Like the ability to see patterns and connections that were previously invisible.
And with that superpower comes the potential to make a real difference in the world.
Absolutely.
That's what I find so inspiring about this field.
Yeah.
It's not just about technology for technology's sake.
Right. It's about using technology to empower ourselves.
Yeah.
To solve these real-world problems.
Exactly.
And to create a better future.
Absolutely.
That's a powerful thought. And it's one that I think resonates with anyone who's passionate about, using data for good.
I agree.
But let's bring it back to, Neo4j GraphRag specifically.
Okay. Yeah.
We've talked about these broader implications of knowledge graphs.
Yeah.
But how does this particular library contribute to that bigger picture? How does it help us unlock that potential?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of why I think this library is so exciting. Okay. Because building and using knowledge graphs, it can be complex, right?
Yeah.
It often requires specialized skills,
Right.
knowledge.
Right.
But Neo4j GraphRag acts as this bridge, making this really powerful technology accessible to a much wider audience.
So it's like providing this set of user-friendly tools that allow anyone, regardless of their technical expertise, to tap into the power of knowledge graphs.
Absolutely. It removes the barriers to entry, right?
Okay.
So it allows domain experts, data analysts, even citizen data scientists
to really harness the power of graph data science and AI.
So instead of needing like a PhD in computer science to build and use these systems, we've got Neo4j GraphQL providing that on-ramp. That's much more approachable.
Precisely. It's about democratizing access to these, these really powerful tools and techniques. Empowering more people to ask those interesting questions, uncover those hidden insights, and, drive positive change.
I love that. And that's the beauty of open source technologies like this, right?
Yes.
They break down the silos, they foster collaboration.
Exactly.
And they unlock innovation on a global scale.
On a global scale.
And Neo4j GraphPython, with its combination of user-friendliness, powerful features, and, this integration with other leading technologies, it's a shining example of that potential.
It really is. It's like having a Swiss Army knife for knowledge graph exploration.
I love that.
Packed with all the essential tools to tackle any challenge. But even with the best tools in the world, it all comes down to the user, right?
It does.
What they choose to build, the questions they ask, the problems they choose to solve.
You're absolutely right. The tools themselves, they're just the beginning.
Right.
The real magic happens when those curious minds, armed with these tools, start exploring their data, start asking questions, and start uncovering those aha moments that lead to those breakthroughs.
I love it.
It's an exciting time to be in this field.
It really is. It's like we're seeing the Matrix, right?
Almost. It is like being handed this incredibly powerful lens, and suddenly we can see the world in a whole new light.
Yeah.
With all these intricate connections and those hidden patterns, finally revealed.
Yeah. And the best part is this lens, it's available to everyone.
It is.
You don't need a supercomputer. You don't need a team of data scientists to start exploring with these tools with Neo4j GraphQL. That power is at your fingertips.
It is. It's a really empowering thought.
It is. But before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about the text-to-cipher pipeline. And just the potential pitfalls of working with LLMs.
Right.
We've talked about how we as users can guide the LLM to generate, more accurate queries and more relevant queries. But are there any inherent limitations we should be aware of?
You are absolutely right to raise that point.
Okay.
It's super important to approach any new technology, especially something as powerful as AI, with a healthy dose of, skepticism and critical thinking.
Right.
Because LLMs, for all their amazing capabilities, they're still in their infancy, right? They're constantly learning and evolving.
Okay.
But they can make mistakes, right? They can misunderstand our questions. They can generate biased outputs.
Right.
They can even, sometimes they hallucinate information that's not actually present in the data.
Yeah. Right. So it's not just about guiding the LLM to generate technically correct queries.
Right.
It's about being aware of these broader limitations and approaching the output with a discerning eye.
Exactly. We can't just blindly trust the LLM's output, no matter how, impressive it might seem.
Right.
It's really our responsibility as users to critically evaluate those results. To cross-check them against our own knowledge and understanding.
Right. So even with this powerful text-to-cipher pipeline at our disposal, we still need that human oversight, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We need that critical thinking,
yes,
that domain expertise to make sure we're using these tools responsibly,
yes,
and drawing, accurate conclusions from them.
It's about finding that right balance between human intuition,
right,
and AI's computational power.
Right. It's not about replacing us.
Exactly.
It's about working with these tools.
Working together.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, with great power comes great responsibility.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
We have these incredible tools at our disposal.
We do.
But it's up to us to use them ethically, to be mindful of their limitations, and to ensure that the insights we're gleaning are accurate, unbiased, and ultimately beneficial.
Well said. That's a sentiment we should all keep in mind as we kind of venture further into this world of AI and knowledge graphs.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what what key takeaways do you hope our listeners walk away with?
I think the most important takeaway is this. Knowledge graphs, especially when paired with AI and tools like Neo4j GraphRag,
Yeah.
they have this incredible potential to really revolutionize how we interact with data.
Okay.
This revolution, it's not about replacing human intelligence with artificial intelligence, okay?
Okay.
It's about creating this really powerful synergy between the two,
Yeah.
about empowering ourselves with the tools and knowledge to ask better questions, uncover those connections, and ultimately, make better decisions.
It's about embracing that curiosity, challenging those assumptions, and approaching this new frontier of knowledge with excitement,
Yeah.
but also that healthy dose of critical thinking.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, on that note, I think it's time for us to surface from this deep dive. But to our listeners, we hope this is just the beginning of your own explorations into the fascinating world of knowledge graphs.
It is a fascinating world.
And the power of Neo4j GraphRag.
Happy graph hacking, everyone!
Until next time.